Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Portland, Maine Board of Education Finance, Personnel, and Operations Committee meeting. It is Monday, November 3rd, 2025 at 6:01 p.m. and we are just getting started. My name is Sarah Bryden. I'm the chair of the committee. We have with us board members Opperman and Sawtell, who are committee members. And then we have staff members. We have Superintendent Ryan Scallon. We have Lisa Beck, Heather Peters, and Rosa King. It's going to be a great conversation. We are tonight going to be talking about a number of board policies. For folks who have joined us for recent meetings, you'll know that there's an overall policy review happening, and there are some policies that there's certainly the policy committee is going to be doing a lot of this work, but there are some policies that are relevant to the topics of finance, personnel, and operations that are getting sort of a first pass in this committee before it goes over to the policy committee. So we're going to be talking about a number of those policies. We are going to be talking about we're going to start the first of many conversations about the FY27 budget process. It's always budget season. And then we're going to have a couple of personnel items as well. Before we dive into that, I'm just going to do my customary check to see if there's any folks on Zoom who might want to give public comment, and there are not. So we can just jump right into the agenda. Dr. Scallon, where were you hoping to start?
I'd like to start by giving an update on FY27 finance process.
Great. Take it away.
Great. Just want to make sure that somebody can see that.
Yes.
Perfect. So I want to share with the committee that we've begun the work on the FY27 budget. We do anticipate this being a more challenging year than last year, but not as challenging as our process was 2 years ago. Just some forecasts here. What you see below is some anticipation. So on the revenue side, what we're hearing from the community, and I'm sure you're sensing as well, is that property reevaluations have created a sense of anxiety about property taxes in the city. It's unclear if there will be any positive change at the state level for the essential services and programs funding. That's EPS, or that's the state funding formula that we've talked about in the past. And then we do have a small decrease in enrollment in this current school year, which will apply some downward pressure on the state funding that we receive. On the expenses side, just starting with a piece of good news, is that this year is the last year of our pension bond obligation. And so that will be removed, saving about $2.7 million for this coming year. We are anticipating increased personnel costs for salaries. Just as a reminder, our collective bargaining agreements go up 2 to 3 percentage points before step increases. And so oftentimes staff are seeing closer to a 5% increase, as well as benefits going up. Just a reminder from last year that benefits, we already anticipate a 6.6% increase for teachers because their benefit increase was capped last year. And so that's just a carryover from last year, as well as any increase that we see for this coming year. And so we do anticipate benefits being a challenge. Typical inflationary increases for supplies and non-personnel, other costs there. And so we do anticipate that there'll be some inflationary increases. And then we are anticipating that there'll be some identified investments in alignment with the strategic plan. And so we'll be looking at getting really targeted on what those investments are. I also am happy to say that we've improved our processes each year and are looking to make some additional improvements this year. And so what you see on the slide are some of those proposed changes. So one, we're beginning the process earlier. And so we are going to be gathering initial input from school leaders in November. That's a couple of months earlier than typical. We have more baseline information and that we're going to do in preparation for this budget and to share with this committee. And so what we always do a zero-based budget, we are going to provide a carry forward budget in December. And so that will allow you as a committee and as a board to see what costs would be if we simply ran the same budget or the same personnel, non-personnel this year and next year. And so it'll just give you a sense of what the increases would be before we need programmatic changes. We're leveraging technology and using our financial systems earlier in the process. And so we started this last year, but look to do that even more, doing some of the budgeting outside of Excel and in our Munis financial system. We also have data that we haven't typically had that allows us to strengthen our system. And so with our new payroll system that's been in place for 2 years, we're actually in a spot where we can shift to using actual salaries. And so get a little bit more targeted with our budget and then using average just for new hires. This fifth bullet, we are going to look to more tightly align funding with outcomes. And so we're going to require that all of the identified investments in the budget have measurable outcome goals. And so we can look and see if the new plan or program actually produces the results that we're budgeting for. And then I don't think we'll get all the way there, but based on anticipated feedback from the Boundary Committee and the board, we're going to continue to make progress in looking at staffing and non-personnel according to student need. And so looking at, we already do that with title funds, but looking to do that even more with some non-title funds as well. These improvements help ensure that we have a robust, participatory, and transparent process. And so just to walk you through a little bit of what I shared in the last slide, but to go over the budget process. And so in November, we're going to work with schools around school plans, some initial staffing counts that may get adjusted as the budget process goes on, and then some non-personnel and stipends for departments and schools. In December, as I said, we'll share that roll forward budget. We'll have cabinet reviews of school and department plans. We will hopefully get from this committee board priorities, and we will start the staff engagement process as well. In January, we will update initial and that roll forward budget based on board priorities and staff leader feedback. In February, we look to get it all uploaded in our financial system and much earlier in February this year. And then we have the community forum at that first board meeting in February, where we will talk about all things fiscal year 27. So that's the first of several public engagements around the budget. That first meeting in March, we will have the superintendent budget presentation, and then we will dig deep into community engagement and feedback through the months of March and April. And just a reminder, I don't have it here, but this budget would then get approved by the committee and then the board in April, and then city council in May. And so that's a quick update on where we are at with budget planning and what we're looking forward to this year in terms of improving the process. And so I'd love to stop there, see what questions there are.
I have a quick question. I think it's a quick question. I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about the measurable outcome goals. I understand you might not it might not be the right meeting to have a big conversation about that, but maybe a couple of examples, because, I think that that's a great idea and a really, really smart measure of accountability. And also some investments aren't going to pay off until years. You can't, necessarily measure, oh, we invested in music teachers in the high school and now, these kids are going to have a great, 10 years from now. So.
Yeah, I think what we're going to try to get at is both some short, middle, and long term about what we'll see, really to help us as a central office team and then as a board to make sure that the money that we are using is resulting in outcomes. And so your example of the high school music teachers is a great example. The measurable there may not be about life outcomes. Mm-hmm. It may be about the number of students who participate in music and whether or not we're able to see an increase based on this. At the same time, we this year invested by placing an ed tech in every kindergarten class during the reading block. And so I do think it would be fair to expect to see that our kindergarten reading performance on CKLA, or when a teacher's conferencing with a student, has improved. And it may not be that we see it by the time we're ready for the budget season, but another budget season, right? So there may be that it's 2 or 3 years, but it'll hopefully get us into a cycle of always looking at our investments and our programming to make sure that the investment is turning out an outcome.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the equitable funding idea, to know that there could be distributions according to need, no matter whether the boundary committee does anything or not. I mean, that would be my thought. The other thing on the aligning funding with outcomes in the investment end, looking back and analyzing what outcomes we've had with programs, I would hope to be part of that too. Thanks.
Dr. Opperman, I think that's a really good point, and one that we'll work to make sure of. It's oftentimes, I was in a conference the other day with all CFOs, and it was, as you point out, it was the thing that gets missed, right? So everybody talks about the new, but also looking at the past and making sure that the past is producing outcomes. Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Thoughts? Okay. Budget's a great topic. Love it.
Can I preview just one thing, Chair, about budget?
Yeah.
Is that just want to plant the seed for this committee to start to think about what priorities they want us to look into and discuss. I know that there's one getting discussed at the policy committee tonight that could have significant budget impacts, but just would love to have members of the committee start to percolate on that so that we could have a couple of minutes in November, the second meeting, as well as that first meeting in December to start to get that feedback.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, so we as committee members will come prepared to talk about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So the next topic, as you
Yes.
said, more eloquently than I'm going to, we have an ongoing review of policy. And so I was hoping that we could put up the policies that were open for discussion at the last meeting that we didn't have time to get to, as well as the new ones. And I'm happy to share my screen. What you'll see there is the policy lettering, the title of it, and then any suggested changes or additions from staff, and see if there are any additional from the committee.
I just have one quick, yes, that sounds like a great plan. My clarification question is whether it's staff only making the recommendation, or has this gone through Drummond with some already? Or okay, so that's the next.
Nope. Yeah, so from a process, and that's really good. We did this at the first one of these, but we didn't do it here. From a sequencing, the way we're doing finance, personnel, and operations is anything that you would like adjusted for purposes of oversight, clarity, effectiveness, we're naming here. It then goes to Drummond.
Yeah.
Drummond reviews the policy and the suggestions and provides suggested red line feedback to the policy committee that then takes it up.
Sounds great. Thank you.
So is that big enough that you can read it? Great. Saw Julianne nodding. So the 4 policies on the screen here were, I think, primarily from last time. The first one was around budget oversight and administration. The suggestion here is similar to what we talked about at the last one of these, is to adjust the title for the senior leader in finance to something more general. There's a whole number of titles that are used throughout our policies, And so just renorming on that so that there's a general title for the future. I don't know if committee members have any additional feedback from reviewing DIC. They're pretty quiet policies this week. Great. DID is inventories. And my suggestion and request is that we establish an R. The board doesn't normally vote on an R, but would love to actually do that and bring it back, just so you have awareness, because the policy is very short and basically says that you will keep an inventory. And so we want to spell out how that will work.
Board Member Sawtelle, go ahead.
What's an R?
An R is the rules or procedures about how it'll happen. So the policy states what the expectation is. The R says, how do you actually implement it? All right. This next one was a little bit of a vocabulary for me, so it was good to learn something. DJC is around petty cash or impressed accounts. They're synonymous. And it allows for schools to establish a small amount of petty cash. And so we want to just tighten the rules and the language around that.
Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Scallon, on the inventory one, and I read, correct me if I'm wrong, reading through the policy was putting the responsibility for it on the administration. And is the R going to be with the administration, or are we going all the way down to music teachers and the like?
So if I remember correctly, the policy says that the superintendent will be responsible for it. And so I think that's what I remember. And I looked at this a long time ago. What we would do is put an R in that just talks about how the district does inventory from the time it's purchased to disposal.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments on DJC? Go ahead.
Petty cash, is there, I looked at this and haven't looked at it. An amount that is permitted to be kept within the building, or for how long will it be kept in the building?
The policy does not state that.
And so that's why you're going to do an R on it, and that
Yeah.
that set those kind of parameters.
Set that kind of parameter. I mean, one of the things is just a best practice and an accounting expectation. I wouldn't even say a best practice. It is fundamental, is that you can't collect funds and pay somebody out of those funds or reimburse out of those funds. You actually have to deposit it and take it back out so that there's for purposes of accounting. So we just really want to spell this all out. We're also in the process of looking at our student activity accounts. That is the thing that most often puts cash in a school, right? Money for a field trip, money for sports, money for, I don't know. And so we want to, again, be really clear on that as we're going through this.
So to continue, if I may, when it comes to money related to sports, related to, or to any co-curricular booster groups and the like, is that go through us, or does that go through their own setup?
So you're
I just don't
you're
know.
like 4 months you're like 4 months ahead of us,
Okay.
Which I appreciate. So just to like answer your question and be really transparent, PTOs and boosters are separate nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we actually do, our school secretaries do a fair amount of support for those organizations. It creates a, what I'm going to call a bit of a financial liability.
Yep.
And some separation of duties challenges. And so it's an area that we want to train our boosters and train our PTOs on how to do, but then step out of, as it really isn't the job of the school or the school secretary to do.
No, it dumps more on the secretary, and Lord knows they don't need it. Okay, thank you. I'm done, Chair.
No, you just are leading into a good next one. So DJG is Vendor Relations. If you read this policy, there is a bullet F that talks about who the district should not do vending with, and it speaks about city employees and city staff and city councilors and their family members. And so my recommendation, or our recommendation, is to expand it to include school district employees, school district employee families, members of the board, to follow the same parallel structure that it has with the city.
I agree 100%. And I will just say, ironically, what I'm seeing in terms of, so I navigated in through the portlandschools.org website and went to board policies, book D. There is no F. It goes from E to G, at least where I'm looking. So, but I agree with the concept of what you're proposing for a change.
I think there's, let me just hold on. I'm just gonna pull it up.
There it is, vendors.
There we go.
Correct. You're right.
Wait.
There is no F.
All right, good. Let's
be.
add an F. Let's add an F.
Well, G,
I just like mentally assumed it.
G is F.
Unbelievable.
G is F.
Yes. G is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whatever the F has to be.
Yep.
Here we go.
Julianne, I will quote you on that. All right, let's go to the second page. So DJGA is sales calls and demonstrations. There's no recommended change. In cash in school buildings, there's no recommended change.
Well, that was my question about cash in school buildings. Is there a limit in there? I don't remember that.
There, I don't believe is.
So,
We could add a limit.
I was just wondering, because since it has to go out and be paid out through Ms. Beck, basically, it's like the cash shouldn't be there very long, and it shouldn't be over a certain amount of,
Yep.
It should.
Yeah, I would also be interested in hearing Drummond's thoughts on whether there is any, whether there are pros and cons to setting that sort of limitation in a policy versus whether that would, back folks into a corner in particular circumstances. But also balancing, the things that you're pointing out. I'd be interested in hearing what they have to say, and then obviously letting the policy committee run with that.
Yeah, and I think the reason we suggested no change is that any limit made sense to put in petty cash if there was one. Here, it simply says that if you have cash, you have to keep it in a locked box that's specifically for that purpose and only for that purpose. And second, that we're, as a school committee, not accepting responsibility for anything else that remains in the building. So it's really narrowly focused there.
Quick follow-up question. No change, is that outside the scope of school committee moving to Board of Education, that terminology?
No, we can do that.
Okay. Super.
I'd made note of that in another spot, and I think policy was doing that anyways, but I'll make note of that again too.
Yeah.
Great. The next one I'd actually like for people to pull up in Diligent for a couple of minutes since we have a second. This is a new policy that is required by law that the school board established this year. And if you go on to Diligent, Sorry, just where I have it. You can access that PDF. It's this one right here, ECC Extreme Temperature Policy.
Mhm.
And there's a couple of questions that I'd like your feedback on. So first is they provide a recommendation. This is Drummond Woodsum sample policy recommendations for it. And it provides a minimum temperature of 65 degrees and a maximum temperature of 82. And then talks about not that there isn't school, but that when it's not at that temperature in that range, that school personnel will take measures to address. There are other districts that have passed this with minimum and maximum temperatures that are much larger on the extremes to provide the school district as much flexibility. I'm not suggesting either way, but just curious if there was any feedback from the board or the committee around the minimum and maximum temperature.
Oh,
Go ahead, Board Member Opperman. Yeah.
having been in a very freezing cold room at a point, I appreciate some kind of a limit to make things happen. I don't know if 65, if it's falling below 65 during the school day in the evening, because often heat goes off at night, because when the timing on this, and whether it is occupied space or actually occupied, and so that's that piece. Cost aspect. One, having been frozen at 8 o'clock at night in a room is unpleasant. So that's one piece of it. But if there's some, weekends or whatever, no one's there and we're still maintaining an occupied space. So that's a question of language that I would have on that and the limitations. 82, I don't know on these 65 and 82 in these buildings. I don't know how practical that is, and I think maybe Jane could say more about that since she
Board Member Sawtelle, go ahead.
Yeah, having taught in a classroom that was sometimes 55 and sometimes literally 112 one day. But I feel like there's enough language in here saying, building personnel or whatever it is. I can't find it right now, but basically that the custodians will address it. And, I am a Mainer. I wouldn't mind teaching in a classroom that was 60 degrees, but a lot of students are wearing their coats all winter anyway, despite how warm it is. So I don't know. I think it's fine. And there seems to be enough out with like facilities directors and custodians that there are contingency plans or yeah.
It doesn't give a limit to the length of time they have
Right.
to work on that, but I don't know if that's necessary.
Yeah, so Superintendent, thank you for hovering over the word occupied to draw our attention to that. I appreciate that. And I just want to chime in and say that I agree with where the conversation is going in terms of I see that there's the other path we could take is to say school's closed if the temperature is above or below. And I think that if that were the path we were going to take, then yeah, we would probably need to have a broader range. But I like what's being proposed up above, where it's the 65 to 82 triggering action, not closure of school. So I think that's appropriate.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a much better way of saying it. And we did have times at Portland High where the science wing on the 3.5 floor, 4th floor, whatever, would get extremely hot in September or June. And sometimes those classes could just relocate to the auditorium, which was air conditioned, or to a space on a lower floor that wasn't as hot. So yeah, I think taking action is a better
Yeah.
alternative than sending people home.
And so-
home is a real problem all across, like, pardon me. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, Dr. Opperman, you are doing a good job of previewing a future conversation around snow day policy. So I appreciate that. What I'm hearing is that folks are fine with the guidance up here and the temperatures. What I'm also hearing, I'm just going to state this, and just people can chime in if they disagree, is that when you look at this paragraph here, extreme weather, aging equipment, etc., that you prefer the language that's currently there, not the optional alternative language. Great.
That's
I see a
correct for
thumbs up
me.
from Jane.
Yep.
Great. Cool. Okay. Great. Gonna go back here. So there's two policies that have to do with the use of vehicles. Policy EEAD, which has to do with school-owned vehicles. And we're suggesting no changes there. And then policy EEADA, which is the authorized use of vehicles. This policy is important because this policy indicates a R around who's approved to drive vehicles. And so we're suggesting that a clear R be established that cross-references with policy EEBR, which is the use of personal vehicles, that will allow consistency and clarity between school district owned and private vehicles in terms of who can drive, who they can drive, etc. Didn't know if there was any feedback on those.
So
But
one
that's
thing
EEAD. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I am in EEADA online, and the
Yep.
cross-references include EEADA. So I wonder if it's supposed to be a cross-reference to EEAD.
That would make sense.
So just calling that out in terms of the cross-references might need to get cleaned up.
Yep. I also think there's a reference to an R in one of the two, I don't remember which now, that I could not find.
Oh.
And so this is about really establishing that.
Yeah, so the content of EEADA talks about procedures articulated in EEBR, but then the cross-reference is not to EEBR, it is to EEBBR.
Of which, and I think if you look on our board policy, here we go. There is, right, this, but it is, yeah, so you may be right on this, the cross-reference, so that may help with it.
Yeah. So from what I'm seeing, it looks like within the cross-references, EEADA should be EEAD. And then within the content of EEADA, it should say under the procedures articulated in EEBBR.
Yep.
It's missing.
That makes sense. Yep. Any other feedback?
Looks like we're good.
Great. I will share this with our friends at Drummond and with the policy committee.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Let me stop sharing. So committee, I'm happy to also have Rosa King here to present out on both some work she's doing around certification as well as pipeline. And we had talked about this a while ago, and it slipped my mind to get it on this meeting, but since we had a lighter agenda, it made sense. And so I apologize for the last minute notice on it and the addition. Rose has been ready for a while and chomping at the bit to present. And so this is my fault that you're just getting it today, but happy to do this. One of the things that Rose is going to talk about is around pipeline options and the ability to have ed techs who are interested advance to teacher, teachers who are interested advance to AP. That is not a statement on the value of one position over another, but the recognition that we have career ed techs that love being an ed tech and stay in ed tech their whole career. We have career teachers that love being a teacher and stay teachers the whole time. And we have structures to support them in terms of professional development, scales that move with that. And we have folks that are interested in moving from ed tech to teacher or from teacher to assistant principal. And we have a need as a district as well to fill hard to fill areas in terms of teacher and assistant principal. And so Rose has been working on developing that work. So Rose, I'm going to turn it over to you. Do you want me to share your slides so you can see them, or do you want to share them?
If you could share them, that would be great. I would like to see everybody as I speak, so that's really helpful. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. As Ryan stated, I'm just going to speak on this briefly and then answer any questions that you may have. The first bullet point here is around 660 certification, which we do have a cohort starting in January. And right now we have about over 30 teachers who are interested in the cohort, have already signed up. Link has been live no more than 2 weeks. So we anticipate that number doubling prior to January. Then I'll be speaking on the teacher to AP cohort, which is the first leadership pipeline that we are starting in summer 2026. We also have an EdTech spotlight group starting this month, and then some future goals around mentoring, and then the revision to chapter 115 in terms of portfolio pathways for folks. Thank you. The 660 certification opportunity is so exciting. I'm sure some of you remember in 2023, Chair Board Member Sarah Lentz mentioning that they were hoping teachers in the district would all have this certification at some point. So we decided with a particular grant that we have some funds available for to go ahead and start offering this on a wide scale to get teachers certified in this area. So we have, as I said, over 30 already signed up. We're working with the University of Maine at Farmington on this accelerated cohort that will take place in January. It is a 5-course graduate level process for certification. And this will support our multilingual students in particular. As I stated, this will be fully funded for teachers, so we're not asking them to pay any out-of-pocket costs. And not only are we fully funding it, it is going to be an accelerated opportunity. So each course will be about 8 weeks. So this should help them in terms of time management, as well as getting the certification in half the time. And then again, supporting our multilingual learners. And we're hoping that this experience, because it'll be about 25 teachers per cohort, that, you know, if they are interested in doing more work with the University of Maine at Farmington, will join the leadership cohort afterwards. Any questions on the 660? I know I kind of went through that really quick.
Board Member Sawtelle, go ahead.
Hi, I'm just curious if the certification comes with just passing the class. Is there a certain grade level that needs to be, you know, does it need to be above a, you know, above a C, or is there a national exam for ESOL teaching, or?
No exam, they'll take the 5 courses. It will be just as any other graduate course to which they have to maintain a certain grade for the course, for each course. And then after the 5th course, they will be fully certified with the 660.
I have another question. This is really exciting. So the 25 teachers per cohort, I'm curious, could you talk a little bit about like how often a new cohort will start, and also give some context around, okay, 25 teachers at a time, what does that mean in terms of the percentage of our teachers currently that have a certification, and how far we have to go to get 100%?
That's a great question. I do not know the amount of teachers that we have right now who have the certification, but I will say the reason why I say 25 is the maximum class amount can only be 25. So we're actually, because we are already past that number, we will have 2 cohorts starting at the same time. So they'll be split. We do anticipate more on the wait list, but we're hoping that even if we do have 75, right? We're hoping for as many teachers as we can get. There are funds available in the grant to support that. So right now it's safe to say we have 2 starting in January. Could we get to 3? Possibly.
Okay. Yep. Progress is progress.
Yes.
That's so great. And I would appreciate, at either in a future meeting or, email, just a bit of context around like where we're situated in terms of, or is this I know it's not the first 25, but where we are along the continuum of where we are and where we need to be. That'd be super.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions before Rosa continues on? All right, go ahead.
So the first pipeline that we're actually going to start with is the teacher to assistant principal pathway. That is also going to be an accelerated online leadership pathway through a partnership with UMF and USM. And that will start in the summer. And the reason for that being is we understand that, teachers have a lot to do between lesson planning, grading, home life, etc. So it's a nice way to not have them rushing to start a program such as this during the school year, but wait until the summer begins. And also promote it a lot more so that we can get more folks interested. Right now, we have about 11 teachers who are interested in this pathway, which is more than we anticipated. And a lot of that has to do with the work that the principals did in terms of nominating teachers within their school to say, these are folks that I've identified as potential leaders in the district. This will also be funded through the apprenticeship grant, which will end in September. But right now we do have the funds in order to start the first cohort here. I just want to point out as well that there is no obligation with this cohort. If a teacher decides or has in their mind that they may want to pursue a leadership growth opportunity to become an assistant principal, and then they start the cohort and start the courses and are like, this actually is not what I thought it would be, and this is not something that I want to do. There is no obligation. They would just have received the coursework and some nice lane change additions to their salary, and then that'll be it. But also they would have gained some valuable skills as well. Either way, it's a win-win.
All right, is it okay to ask I don't want to interrupt you if you're.
Yeah,
okay. So in part because we were talking about, starting the budget process, and so, that's at the top of my mind as well. You were talking about grant funding, which is just fantastic. My curiosity here is whether it's likely that we will be able to get enough people, I don't know if that's the right phrasing, but will we be able to take advantage of all the grant funding that's available to us as a district versus leaving some money on the table?
Yes, so we have right now $127,000 with the main apprenticeship grant to fund the 660 cohort and this pathway, as well as mentoring, which I'll touch upon in the next couple of slides.
Okay.
So the idea is that we are going to have folks interested in this, and we have a new grant manager, Matt Dubell. I'm going to shout him out. He's been fantastic in helping out with all of this work. And we have talked about finding funding after this grant runs out to continue on with this work. So it's not set in stone, but we do have some other options to keep it going.
Super. And to make sure that I heard you correctly, there's enough interest and, waiting lists and all that we are going to take advantage of all of the funding that's available. Yes.
Yes.
Super. Cool. I'm not seeing any other questions, so continue on. This is so cool.
Thank you. So yeah, we're hoping that this will start a strong pipeline for future leaders within the district. And as I said, some will jump at the opportunity once an opportunity presents itself, and others will say, no, I'd rather stay teaching, and that's totally okay. This one is actually one I'm really, really excited about. The EdTech Spotlight Group is really a space for EdTechs who love their job, who do not want to ever become teachers, but want to collaborate and share resources and learn together and really just do some peer-to-peer learning and work on some professional growth. So that is what the EdTech Spotlight Group is about. And that was brought about after a conversation with Jen Cooper on what supports are out there for EdTechs in terms of not pipeline, per se, but more so like supporting them and being able to collaborate on what they're doing in the classrooms. As I said, they'll be sharing resources in this group. We also want to shine a light on them as leaders and innovators and, have some shout outs and talk to students and just provide them with some feedback on how they're doing and how they're making positive impacts in the lives of the kids that they're working with.
Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Thank you. This is incredible, and I'm so happy because I have an incredible high respect for ed techs, and they deserve so much more than they generally get. My questions are twofold. One, are the ed techs are going to be providing the presentations, the gatherings, the topics, or is there a structure to it that's external to whoever gets together? And the second thing is, if ed techs are doing it, are they going to be paid for presenting PD?
So they would be meeting once every quarter during their professional development time, which happens, I believe, on Wednesdays. And then there is a structure to it. I'm actually working right now with Jen Cooper and some other folks on seeing what we want to talk about. It will not be a group to where there are guest speakers coming in and talking at them. It's meant to be collaborative, fun, engaging, sharing resources, what's working, what's not working. And so there's a Google form that went out as well to ask them, what is it that you want this group to be? There's no obligation to join, but if you do join, what do you want to see happen in this group?
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another follow-up question about the work that's being done to support and lift up ed techs. I'm curious about whether, so the 660 certification cohorts are all teachers. Are there opportunities for ed techs to get some of the same skills and concepts around ESOL education?
I appreciate that question. I actually anticipated ed techs being part of the cohort, but with the amount of teachers who are interested in the certification, that's unfortunately, that's the priority right now. So we are hoping to have space for them to also be part of that cohort
Okay.
at some point in the near future. Yes.
Okay. So not right now, but eventually. Yes. Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you. Other questions? All right. Go ahead.
All right, I'll go through this one fairly quickly because it is a future goal. With the leadership pathways happening starting in the summer, we are hoping to start partnership with districts in Southern Maine to build a mentoring collaborative unit, so to speak, where principals and assistant principals are supporting our new assistant principals and principals, and then our experienced assistant principals and principals will be supporting their new folks. And the reason for that is not only to build this Southern Maine network of leaders, but also it can be really difficult for someone stepping into an APN principal role and asking particular questions of their peers without, without worry of how they might take it, or, what is acceptable and not acceptable. So we're hoping that having some mentoring done within other districts in the area will help, if that makes sense. Any questions on that one? I know I kind of
Board member Opperman, go ahead.
Hi, Rosa, I don't know if you know that there is an informal principal association. Sheila is involved in that. I know you know about that. Okay, because a friend of mine who's a principal in Thompson, and I met about something else, and he was telling me that they actually do get together. So I think you've got to start there that I hope you get into.
We actually, I believe that is the group that Heather Perry from Gorham sent out some information on. So we were hoping to learn more about it and see how we could have some of our leaders join that group in order to gain those skills to support other, new admins in the role. Yeah. So that's definitely a start. We are also working with the DOE and the Maine Principals Association and trying to see what other resources and other folks we can talk to in order to get more information on how we can get this going.
Yeah, good.
Any other questions? All right. And finally, there are some potential changes to Chapter 115 that we're really, really excited about. This is a new pathway especially for career changers and ed techs who are looking to become teachers. And it is a portfolio-based pathway that we are hoping passes. And it would be the district who would work with various new hires or ed techs through this portfolio process in order to become certified as a teacher.
Just super quick question. Chapter 115, is that a Department of Education term? Okay. And does that have to do with certification of teachers or?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. Super.
So this potential change to Chapter 115 would provide individuals with a conditional certification, and then they would create a portfolio and a 3-year plan to which they would have to, do hands-on teaching and have some mentoring support, take a couple of classes, PDs, all things that we can support in-house. And then once that portfolio was completed, we would send it to the DOE and then they would become certified teachers. So it's a different pathway other than having to go through a university in order to take, various courseworks and then taking an exam. It would be strictly a portfolio that we would work with folks on in order to obtain certification. It has not passed yet. We're hoping that it passes, but it needs more public buy-in right now.
Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. In order to be in the pathway and go from an ed tech to a teacher, I think it's great if this goes through. They would have to have a bachelor's degree to begin with, correct?
Yes.
It'd have to be an ed tech 3, essentially?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And my other question is, so do you have a sense of, and the answer might be nobody knows, but do you have a sense on timeline in terms of getting more clarity on whether it's going to pass?
I'm not sure yet. I've talked to a couple people who are involved in this, and right now they are building the structure behind this. I even had a meeting with someone from the DOE and asked just specifically about this revision. And she said, it looks like it'll probably go through, but nothing until 2026 for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. And that's all I got.
Wonderful. I believe we are at the end of the content for the agenda. So I will just check and see if there are any last comments, questions, or concerns, or if somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn. I will make a motion to adjourn, and I'm curious if there's a second. Thank you, Board Member Opperman. And so we will just do show of hands for adjournment. Wonderful. We are adjourned at 6:58 p.m. Thank you for the great conversation. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.